Hey guys, this is the OnePlus 15 powered by the mighty Snapdragon 8 Elite Gen 5 chip. With the OnePlus 15, OnePlus has taken a new direction with a big focus on performance. So in this video, we'll see how capable this phone is in terms of gaming with these 9 games. So without any further ado, let's get started. Starting with the benchmarks, we can see chart-topping numbers and around 15 to 20% improvement over the previous generation. When it comes to sustained performance, even here, it performs quite well in different conditions thanks to its advanced cooling system. Now, it's finally time to push this phone to its limits with the gaming test. Starting with BGMI or PUBG, here we get native 120 FPS support, but with game frame interpolation, we can actually push the frame rate to 165 FPS, which is insane. At this frame rate, it feels ridiculously smooth, and if you see the stats on the right, even at 165 FPS, this game is nothing more than a warm-up for this phone. You can see that the temperature doesn't even reach 35 degrees Celsius, and the power draw is also under 4 watts, which is very low. Next is Call of Duty. Here we get native 165 FPS support, but this is only applicable to the frontline and similar game modes and not Battle Royale. So the frontline gameplay feels incredibly smooth, the smoothest among all the phones I've tested so far. In the Battle Royale mode, the native frame rate is 120 FPS, but again with game frame interpolation, we can achieve 165 FPS. This is again an incredibly smooth experience, and just like BGMI before this chip is way too powerful for this phone. So the power draw is again under 4 watts and the temperature under 35 degrees Celsius. Next, we have a new addition, Delta Force. This game is not officially available in India, so I had to sideload it. Here we get a maximum of 120 FPS support and no game frame interpolation. Still, at 120 FPS, this game is buttery smooth, and as you can see, the frame rate is pretty much locked at 120 FPS. This is actually the first time I'm playing this game, and I'm really liking it, much more than BGMI personally speaking. And the visuals of this game are simply amazing. After 3 shooting games, it is now time for some racing games. Starting with Asphalt Legends, we get native 120 FPS support at the highest graphics and no game frame interpolation. I played several races here and it is the smoothest experience I've had in this game. While you can see several drops in the frame rate, those are only during the loading screens and not during the actual races. This is the frame rate graph of one of the races. You can see that the frame rate is extremely stable at around 120 FPS. Power draw is definitely high in this game, but because each race only lasts for a couple of minutes, the phone quickly cools down between races, and so the overall temperature doesn't go up much. Next is CarX Street. Here, even though we have maxed out all the graphics, this game doesn't seem to be optimized for this new chip. So I can see some glitches and artifacts, poor anti-aliasing, and the frame rate is extremely poor at under 30 FPS. This game can run at a stable 60 FPS on the previous generation 8 Elite chip, so I have no doubt that with the future update, this game will work flawlessly on this phone as well. Next, we have Grid Legends, easily the best looking racing game on Android. This game is technically limited to 30 FPS in the graphics preset, but I've modified the preferences file of this game to set the limit to 60 FPS instead. And as you can see, this phone is able to play this game at close to 60 FPS. I am playing on the Chicago track with nighttime and rain, which is extremely demanding because of various light sources and reflections and the sheer density of the Chicago map. Even then, we get an average FPS of 56, which is amazing for such a demanding game. The power draw, however, is insane at over 10 watts, and this is the only game where I could surpass 40 degrees Celsius. So the phone did get quite warm, but it never got uncomfortably hot. If you want to push your phone to the absolute limits, this is the game to do it, even with the latest and greatest 8 Elite Gen 5 chip. Now, after 3 races, it is time for some open world action-adventure games. First in the list is Genshin Impact. Here the native frame rate is 60 FPS, but with game frame interpolation, we get 120 FPS support. I was curious to find out how much more demanding the 120 FPS mode was, and so first I played at 60 FPS, and here even this game, which used to be the most demanding game on Android just a few years back, barely pushes the 8 Elite Gen 5 chip in this phone. The power draw and temperature numbers being similar to PUBG and Call of Duty. Then with the 120 FPS mode enabled, these numbers were only slightly higher. So basically, this 120fps mode is the way to go, as it is just slightly more demanding but feels so much smoother to play. Next we have Tower of Fantasy, which is not as popular as Genshin Impact, but just as good in terms of visuals. And here we get native 90fps support. Still, if you see the frame rate graph, the frame rate is not very stable, but as it is almost always above 60fps, it feels very smooth. I think this game needs some optimization for this chip, as currently it is barely pushing this phone. That will hopefully result in a more stable 90fps frame rate. Finally, we have Wuthering Waves, which is just like the previous two games but with even better visuals. Here we get 60fps support, but on the previous Gen 8 Elite phones, we actually got 120fps support with frame gen tech. So the 120fps support will definitely come to the OnePlus 15 as well with future updates. But right now, at 60fps, this game plays flawlessly. It is obviously more taxing on the chip with 6W power draw and temperature above 35 degrees Celsius, but still, it is nowhere close to pushing this chip to its limits like we saw with Grid Legends. So overall, this OnePlus 15 with the Snapdragon 8 Elite Gen 5 chip, advanced cooling, 165Hz display, a massive 7300 mAh dual cell battery, bypass charging and game frame interpolation support is definitely one of the best phones for gaming. Alright, that's it for this video. Hope you enjoyed it and found it useful. Please like, comment, share and subscribe to my channel down below. Thanks for watching.